to bring it out from their own line. And met by some very willing Auckland defence. And pushed back a couple of metres. Gerard Walters just goes from dubbing half to pick up Darren Doherty. Doherty, 25 metres out from his own line.
As now the Adelaide Rams make their way out onto Marathon Stadium for the first time.
Good evening, listeners and viewers. That's right. Tonight we're going live on Facebook Live, and you will still be able to listen to our podcasts on Thursdays on all your favourite podcast platforms. It's a very good evening. My name is Darren, and we've had to clear the bench. We've had to call in a substitute. Can you believe it? Simon and Aidan are unavailable tonight, but our new presenter is no substitute. I'd like to welcome, of all names, Simon, or AKA Watto. Welcome to the Rampage League podcast.
Thanks for having me tonight, Darren. It's good to be on board. Hopefully I'll get to meet the other team players real soon. But yeah, it's nice to be here and chatting about the Adelaide Rams and rugby league.
It's great. No, it's excellent having you as a member of the team. And yes, Simon will be back in the studio here at Ozsports Radio back in August, and Aidan is just getting over some surgery. So we hope Aidan is doing well in his recovery from his surgery, and we look forward to having Aidan and Simon back with us. Got a great podcast coming your way tonight. Some of the topics we're going to be looking at, of course, with State of Origin Game 3. We know it's a dead rubber, but it's still going to be a great game.
Darren, I don't like the term dead rubber. This game is important. Nobody wants to be defeated 3-0. And this is important to the Blues, and I'm sure it's important to Queenslanders too, because they want that 3-0 thrashing, which, you know, judging by what's happened so far in the series, unless these replacements in New South Wales can step up, it's looking like it might be 3-0. And I don't like saying that because I'm a Blue through and through, but Game 3 is important to me. It's not a dead rubber as far as I'm concerned.
Well, we hope not, as we must declare we're both Blues supporters in the studio tonight. It's going to be interesting when we have Simon back. He's a one-sided Queensland supporter, as he lets me know about it.
Oh, don't worry, mate. I know how to banter with the Queenslanders. I grew up just south of the Queensland border, so I've been dealing with this since day dot. So, you know, I know how to talk to the Queenslanders, mate.
Excellent. Very good. Other things we're going to be looking at tonight, we're going to be, of course, talking about some Adelaide Rams and what we can do to help get it back. And you were showing me a very interesting book before we came on air that's got a lot of great information about the Adelaide Rams and some great stats. So we'll be talking about that a little bit later in the show. Looking forward to that because it looked like a really good book.
It is a very interesting book. It's called The History of Rugby League Clubs. And so there's a piece in there about all of the clubs up until that point in history, which I think was about 10 years ago that book came out. But yeah, very interesting read. We'll dive into that a bit later on.
Absolutely. We're going to be talking about the Newtown Jets. They've put up their hand to be the next team in line for a possible NRL licence.
Yeah, that one's left me scratching my head. Why they think another team from New South Wales is a viable option, it doesn't compute for me. And that's coming from a guy who's from New South Wales and loves my rugby league. I just don't think there's room for another New South Wales team anywhere, from the Central Coast to the Newtown Jets or anybody in between. I just don't think there's room for more New South Wales teams in a national competition.
I have to agree. I made the point when we're off air, it's a bit like having another UAFL team in Melbourne. Melbourne is, of course, the heart of Aussie rules, and that's already got most of the teams in there. So I guess it'd be like trying to fit in another AFL team into Melbourne.
Yeah, I just think the market is saturated on the East Coast, and certainly in New South Wales, in Sydney. You know, spreading out a team maybe to the Central Coast or Far North Coast. I'm biased there because, you know, I would love to see the Ballina Seagulls or somebody like that in the competition, but I just can't see it being justified as far as bringing another team into New South Wales or resurrecting a team who used to be there.
That's right, exactly. Well, we've got an audio grab from Sky News that we'll play when we go back and talk about Newtown Jets. But let's have a little bit of a break, and we'll just play some music, and we'll come back to talk everything State of Origin. You're listening to the Rampage League podcast tonight with Darren and Watto. And we're down a couple of presenters. They've come down. Well, one's come down with an injury, and one is away from the studio tonight. And it's great to join us. And you can catch us on Facebook Live on the Bring Back Rams Facebook page. Let us know what you think. This is something we're thinking of doing, is going live on Facebook a bit more often, but you can still grab our podcast every Thursday. Game 3.
State of Origin, Game 3. You said the word before, dead rubber, and it doesn't compute with me because every game of State of Origin is important. And even though we're going into this game in Sydney, knowing the Shield is going north again, or we're staying north, we know how Queenslanders are. They're, very dominant. They never give up. And as they did in Game 2, even with a player down and, 2 tries behind, they still found a way to win. And that's Queensland. They always know how to find a way to win. And I'm just hoping that the replacements to the Blues team can step up and redeem at least some, semblance of competitiveness in this competition, because we've just been run over by Queensland this year.
Definitely, yes. And even in Game 1, where it was basically a neutral ground, maybe not from a supporter's point of view, because I know I was surrounded by Queenslanders on the hill at Adelaide Oval. Let's have a look at the two teams. Do you want to start?
Sure. We'll start on the Blues side. We've got James Tedesco's back in number 1, Brian Toto, Stephen Crichton in number 3. Bradman Best comes in at number 4 into the centres. I think he's a good addition to the team. I'm really glad to see him get the Blues jersey. Josh Adokar in number 5 on the other wing. And we've got Cody Walker coming back to join Mitchell Moses in 6 and 7. Now, to me, I like that. I think Cody Walker should have been there sooner. But I really think that halves combination can do some damage. So it's looking good there. Forward pack, we got Jake Trebojevic, Damien Cook in number 9. Regan Campbell-Gillard in 10, Liam Martin, and I'm going to massacre his name, but Kian Kola-Matalangi. I know I've got that incorrect, so somebody correct me on that one further down the track. And Cameron Murray in lock. Isaac Yeo, Jacob Safidi, Reece Robson, and Clint Gutho on the bench. To me, that's looking like a good Blues squad. I would have loved to have seen that in Game 1 or Game 2. There we are. So, and on the Queensland side, we've got AJ Brimson in fullback, Xavier Coates on the wing, Valentine Holmes and Tabuai Fido in the centres, Murray Taulungi on the other wing, Cameron Munster and Daly Cherry Evans, captaining from the centre, number 7, and Ruben Cotter, Harry Grant, Big Tino in the forward line. Second row is David Fafita and Jeremiah Nanai. And the lock is Paddy Carrigan. Coming off the bench for Queensland, we've got Ben Hunt, Lindsay Collins, that guy. I love him when he's in a Roosters jersey, but I wish he played as well as he does when he's in a Queensland jersey, because when he puts that Queensland jersey on, he steps up levels. So who was the 16? We just went a bit far then. That's Soto Kaya. Again, I've massacred his name. And Corey Hornsberg in 17. So our reserves as well, we've got Tom Dearden and Jermaine Hopgood, 18 and 19 for the Queenslanders, and Scotty Drinkwater and Lanio in the New South Wales reserve. So there's a lot of changes to the Blues side, a couple of changes to the Queenslanders. How do you look at it, Darren?
I think there's two very good sides. I'm very happy with the Blues lineup. It's got everyone I would expect in there, and I think it's a pretty good looking Queensland side.
I think it's going to be a great game. I'm hoping for a good, tight, challenging game. It's always good to see in Origin when it's a close one. And as I say, it pains me to say, but I just think Queensland are far too good this year once again. I hope they prove me wrong. I hope the Blues go out there and just give it their all. So we'll see how things unfold in Game 3.
That's right. It's in Sydney next Wednesday, the 12th of July.
Certainly is. I hope the Blues fans turn up. One of these things that always grinds my gears, I guess I'm going to say, is this talk about the Queensland spirit and saying that there is no pride in the New South Wales jersey. Well, as a New South Wales supporter, I bleed blue. Every year, I don't care whether we've win or lose, I stand up, I scream at the top of my lungs, I yell at the TV, and when I have the opportunity to go to a game here in Adelaide, I scream louder than anybody else around me. I am that passionate about supporting my state and the Mighty Blues, and I love our team. And I hope that the fans turn up in Sydney to show that, okay, we've lost the series, but we still are here. Because I don't know about you, Darren, I don't know if you remember back when New South Wales won 3 straight.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yep.
And
yes.
the notorious comment, I think it was Choppy Close, who said Origin is dead. I think it was backed up by Mal Meninga, who said, they need to change the selection criteria to make it interesting. Now, that was after 3 series. Queenslanders were saying that.
Yes.
I've never heard that from a Blues supporter, or certainly not from a Blues legend. One of our greats, I would never, ever think they would say Origin is dead. We lost 8 straight series. We didn't say Origin was dead. We still kept coming back year after year to support our team. And that tells me there's New South Wales spirit.
Oh, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So, dare we ask for tips, or is it...
My heart says New South Wales by 4. My brain says Queensland is just too dominant, and it's probably by 12 plus.
Right. Well, there you go. Let us know what you think. Who do you think will take it out, and by how much? Go on to check out the Bring Back the Rams Facebook page, or you could join the Adelaide Rams Jumbuck group at facebook.com/groups Adelaide Rams, and find out all what's happening with the Adelaide Rams and how you can get involved in helping us bring back the Adelaide Rams. You're listening to the Rampage League podcast with Darren and Watto. Tonight we'll be right back with what's happening in the NRLSA. Of course, that's South Australia's own rugby league. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Rampage. To the Rampage League podcast with Darren and Watto, and we're going to be talking about what's happening with the NRLSA. Of course, that's South Australia's own rugby league body, and all the excellent work they do.
Yeah, so NRLSA, they've got 6 teams in the competition this year, which is great. Brothers have just put a team together and joined the competition this year. So what we've got after we've got round 4 of the NRLSA. We had a big win to the Eels, 66-10 over the Bulldogs. Brothers got up 44-24 over the Roosters. The Warriors 24-16 over the Swans. So 3 games in the men's competition each week, which is really, really good to see, a growing competition. Last year we only had 5 teams in the competition, so each week somebody was having a bye. It's great to be able to get an even number, to be able to have everybody playing a game each week. So I don't know the standings of the ladder, but I'll certainly get that information to you soon, Darren.
Right.
But there has been some blowout scores already this year. That's something that happens in league, but the nice tight games is what I would like to see more of. If we can have a bit of a balance across the field, with each team being able to be competitive each week, and of course each year when we come around to grand final time, keep building on that structure that we've got. We've got the Hills Tigers, a team who has some juniors. They're building now, and they're hoping to be able to rejoin the competition as well. For a 7th team in our NRLSA competition, I would love to see it keep building, and one day we get to 8 or even 10. But if we can continue to build in the juniors, then we'll certainly get there one day and continue to build a grassroots competitive competition here in South Australia.
I was a volunteer with the league years ago, and it was a great competition. We had tag and programs for older kids, and leading up to the women's and men's seniors, it was a great league.
Yeah, the tag competition is very important to the development of the game here in South Australia, and building those skills and getting people interested in the game before we introduce the tackling aspect of it. So it really is important that we show support to the touch game, the tag game here in South Australia, because that's where we're going to get people involved in the game. Show them the fun that they can have playing rugby league, and hopefully they continue with that and join the men's and women's competitions as the years progress. Because I can say the women's competition down here, it's great. They're doing really, really well, and there's some great players there who have had some opportunities interstate as well. Some of the players have had a chance to go play in Brisbane and in Sydney and also in Melbourne from the women's competition. So that's really, really good to see that the women's game is growing here in South Australia as well.
Excellent. And you were telling me that a young player got to play before State of Origin 1 in Adelaide.
2 players, actually.
Wow.
2 young guys from the Warriors. They were selected as a part of the combined affiliate states, the CAS Academy program this year. So they got to train with those teams and were actually a part of the curtain-raising game here in Adelaide for State of Origin Game 1. So they got to play in the lead-up to State of Origin on Adelaide Oval. So that's a really, really big, a great thing for those 2 young players, and a really, really good coup for South Australian Rugby League that we can have 2 players join in to those sorts of games and be a part of. That would have been such a rush for them to run out on the oval.
Absolutely, because it wasn't just a club game between, say, the Roosters and the Dolphins. It was the pinnacle of NRL Rugby League in Australia, State of Origin. So what a better platform to showcase your skills.
Certainly, yeah. And so it was a really good opportunity for those 2 young players, and of course the rest of the teams, the rest of the players involved in those teams. So it's really good, and that's where we want to try to develop, is we want to get these kids involved and loving the game and keep them engaged with rugby league through their teenage years, where we know that kids can drop off and start to get interested in other things, or the ever-present AFL window where there's just so many opportunities here in South Australia for young kids to play AFL. We want to have those kids engaged in rugby league, continue to come back year after year and develop their love for rugby league, so that when they're adults, they continue to play and continue to build our competition here in South Australia.
Definitely. And the whole object of this podcast and videocast is we want to bring back the Adelaide Rams, if not the Adelaide Rams, a team for South Australia. And if we can put pathways into place, and it all starts at grassroots with leagues like the NRLSA, and they can see basically our final goal to maybe, hopefully, playing for a team in South Australia, instead of maybe going into state, it would be excellent.
Certainly, yeah. And that's where we want to be. I personally don't think it's going to happen in the next couple of years. So we need to look ahead to the next decade and sort of start to look at the next 10 years, how we can get these players who are kids now, who are going to be adults, to keep them engaged in the game and continue to build the game of rugby league here in South Australia. So we do have that solid grassroots background to be able to have some depth in our eventual Adelaide national team. Because it's no good for us to try and build what we're doing based on something like what the Dolphins are doing now. That's unrealistic for us, I think, from a South Australian perspective. We don't have, like they had the Redcliffe Dolphins who were already established. They had their development regime already in place. We should be looking at something like what the Melbourne Storm did, where they walked into a state that is completely AFL dominated. They bought a good team right off the bat and had some amazing players in their squad and looked at building their grassroots right from day one. They won a competition in their second year, and no one can deny the importance of the Melbourne Storm in the National Rugby League now. Now that was, 22 years ago? No, hang on, what year are we in? 2023? 25 years ago that the Melbourne Storm came on the scene. And in that time, they've won, I don't even know how many premierships or how many count, but the thing with the Melbourne Storm is they went there with no grassroots, no development area, no catchment zone. They built a great team right from the start, spent their money wisely, and then continued to build from there. And look how dominant the Melbourne Storm are now. There's no denying their importance on the national competition in 2023.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. Going back to the NRL, they've had a great program, their RISE program. What was that about?
Yeah, so the RISE program, RISE stands for Routine, Identity, Socialise, Evolve. And so they held their clinic at Glen Eagles Reserve last month. And as I said, those two young Warrior lads were selected for the Combined Affiliate States Academy to go train with them. And so that was a program to try and, again, engage more kids, bring them into the game and build that reputation of rugby league, here in South Australia, to be able to show that we are doing positive things for these kids and giving them an outlet for their energy. So the RISE routine was really, really good. I will have more information about the RISE program when I have a speak to one of my mates who was heavily involved in that. And I just think the RISE program is something that is really, really important to engage with those kids and get them involved. We also had the Junior Values Gala Day back in May, in the week leading up to State of Origin 1. So that was at Air Sports Park, and we had Pedro 70 cents a litre. I shouldn't joke. Pedro Civoniceva, he's a legend of the game. He was there with Anthony Minicello, so two legends of State of Origin, to guide these kids and to be able to interact with them. And it's a huge opportunity for these kids to meet these guys, because we don't get a lot of interaction here in South Australia with anybody from rugby league, let alone two legends like Pedro and Mini. It was such a good thing and a really good turnout too. The numbers were great for those kids turning up for the Junior Values Gala Day. So that was really, really positive in the lead up to Origin, and hopefully, fingers crossed, those kids went home and said, "Mum, Dad, I want to go to State of Origin. Buy me some tickets, let's go." And we got more people to the game, because we did get good numbers to State of Origin this year.
Oh, we did, 49,000 plus, and 40.
And crunching the numbers on that as well, I know we're skirting away from the topic we're talking about, but State of Origin Game 1, I see as a success for South Australia. We got 39,000 people to the game. The government's numbers, Peter Malinauskas, our Premier, he got on the mic the next day and he said 15,000 extra bums and seats on planes to and from Adelaide that week. That number's important for tourism. But what that number tells me is the flip side of that. 48,000 people at State of Origin. 15,000 people flew in. That leaves us, 33,000 people from South Australia who were interested in rugby league. That number says a lot to me.
Absolutely, and it's a number that we should keep in mind when we're going to the government or organisation saying, well, hey, this is what we had. Let's talk about SA and where we stand with the NRL.
Yeah, certainly. And to me, that says the numbers are here. Between those numbers for Origin and Origin in 2020, admittedly, they had to return 30,000 tickets because of COVID. It would have been a sellout. They already said they were sold out. However, they had to return tickets and spread everybody out across the stadium. So what we also had in South Australia were the 3 games between the Roosters and the Storm. Now, over the 3 years, they averaged 20,000 people to those games. Now, that's more than a lot of Sydney teams are getting on a weekly basis to their games in the heartland of rugby league. Now, the game here was a one-off game. However, there was interest there. There was a lot of interest there. And 20,000 people showing up saying, hey, I'll come and check out this rugby league thing. Or passionate and diehard about rugby league going, yes, we've finally got a game here in South Australia. Let's go. That says to me the interest is here from the people. So it's time to start moving forward with how we can harness those people and get them involved in rugby league and continue to build the game here in South Australia.
Absolutely. So anything else about NRLSA and watch this space?
Yeah, get yourselves along to a game. Go and check it out and just show support for the game of rugby league. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to numbers. We need people involved in the game. We need people there watching the game. We need more volunteers to put their hand up and get involved in the game. And we need more families coming along, getting their kids introduced to the game. So get out there, see the NRLSA games, show your support for a club, pick a club, any club, and show your support for them, or just support the game of rugby league and show that you love the game that we love, and be there for the game here in South Australia and show that you support rugby league on a grassroots level in South Australia.
Definitely. And if you want to know more about NRLSA, mate, check them out on Facebook or on their website. Their website is NRLSA, one word, .com.au, and you'll be able to find out all the news, how to get involved, fixture results, and there's even a tab for contact us. So no excuse, get out there and support grassroots rugby league. This is Darren and Watto from the Rampage League podcast. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Rampage League podcast, and we're going to be talking about another team that's put its hand up for a possible NRL license. We're just going to play just got an audio grab that will play, and we'll come back and talk about it after.
With the NRL set to grow, the battle for the licence for the new team has intensified, and 2 Sydney clubs are centre stage. The Newtown Jets have confirmed they're looking at going interstate to secure the spot.
In their heyday, the Newtown Jets flew high, winning 3 premierships, boasting stars like league great Tommy Raudonikis. But it was a sad end for the club, collecting several wooden spoons before being axed from first grade in 1983. The club lives on at a local level. Their fans still bleed blue.
Go the Jets! We're back, baby!
The Prime Minister showed his colours on his first day in the top job, today backing in what could be one of the greatest comebacks in Australian sporting history.
If it occurs, I just hope that the Jets still get to play some games, if it occurs, at Henson Park.
The Jets' hopes of resurrection hitch to Western Australia's bid to join the NRL. If it takes off, they'll need to be based across the country.
I don't think there's any place too far to take the Jets. I mean, we're called the Jets, so they fly a long way.
It would have to be the Perth Jets, though. How do you think that will sit with the players and with the fans?
I think are okay, as long as the Jets' name is still there, and obviously the kit and the blue and white stripes.
The club is also pushing for a couple of games to be played here at their home ground each season. The proposal is being negotiated by the Jets and the WA government. If they come to an agreement, the NRL would still need to approve bringing on the extra team.
The Jets CEO keeping his cards close to his chest.
How and why and where? Way too early to tell.
With the deal not yet sealed, rivals the North Sydney Bears are hoping they can lock in the licence.
We know the NRL have certain herbs and spices they want in their new franchise, and we feel we can de-risk that process. The grassroots rugby league we have, the history, the heritage, you can't build that stuff overnight, and a foundation club that we are deserves to be a part of that.
From hearing that, what do you think?
Well, the Newtown Jets being another one of those foundation clubs, the Bears were mentioned right at the end there, though. then the end there as well. Both of those teams were foundation clubs in 1908. They've got a rich history. However, I just don't see any room for another New South Wales team to be involved in a national competition. Now, both of those teams, the Jets said they're willing to go to Perth. Now, if the Bears were willing to come to Adelaide, then we can start to talk about being a national competition. And, there's nothing to say that those clubs can't relocate and still keep their heritage. The Sydney Swans still brandish their South Melbourne, heritage on their jerseys now, and they're well and truly established as the Sydney Swans. So it's happened in AFL. It can happen here. The hard thing that we find, I don't know how you feel about the merger teams, but I just think the mergers were so unsuccessful in bringing two teams together because you just can't agree on things to be able to put the combined club forward and, take a back seat with your own heritage sort of thing.
No, exactly. And yes, yep. It's interesting. So you were saying that we couldn't fit another team into New South Wales, but as we heard in the news story, they would be based in WA.
Yeah. So relocating the Jets to WA, great idea. I love it. Take the heritage that they've got from Newtown and take it to a place that is thriving. Their local competition in Perth is thriving and really, really craving rugby league there. And I love the name the Perth Pirates. I would love to see that because I love a good pirate adventure. But realistically, the Perth Jets is something that could eventuate and come together. The Bears tried to merge with Manly. That was like a crash and burn situation and just really, undermined everything that the North Sydney Bears had done up until that point, and that was really sad to see. There's been talk about the Central Coast Bears, taking the Bears further north in New South Wales, and again, to me, that you're bringing back another New South Wales team and relocating them to another location, but still in New South Wales. Now, the Adelaide Bears, I could certainly get behind that. And I know a lot of people, I know one bloke in particular who still wears his Bears jersey, and even though since the Bears have been dropped from the national competition, he's taken on another team and supports them, but his love is still there for North Sydney. Now, those fans, they're the diehard fans that have been there since day one. To have them, if they could embrace relocating to Adelaide, then, I can see a real future there. We're using the grassroots from North Sydney, the feeder clubs that they've got, to be able to establish something here in South Australia.
Do you think I think that's a great idea. I'm all for it. Do you think the diehard Rams fans would get behind the Bears, or would they just be craving a rugby league team in South Australia?
Personally, I think rugby league fans here in South Australia would get behind any franchise coming to Adelaide, because we are craving rugby league that much, and we want something that's going to, we want a team that's going to be competitive and somebody who we can support. As it is at the moment, rugby league fans, we're all supporting somebody from another state. So to have our own team, whether it was somebody who was established somewhere else or bringing in a brand new team, I think rugby league fans, I think Ram fans would get behind whoever it is who comes to Adelaide.
Definitely. Is it surprising that WA hasn't already got a rugby league team? They've got the Western Force in rugby union, but they don't have their own rugby league team.
It does surprise me that it hasn't happened sooner, because knowing, when they take an NRL game to Perth, they sell out their new big stadium. 60,000 people. They take Origin there. It's a sellout. Every time they go to Perth with a game, it's a sellout. The passion is there. The love for the game is there. They just need a team, really. Perth is just sitting there going, please bring us a team. And it's only a couple of hours flight. They go to New Zealand. They jump on one plane and then jump on another plane to go to Townsville. It's not beyond the realm of travelling west for an extra couple of hours on the plane. It's doable. And, I would encourage those teams who, if we do get a Perth team, that whenever a team is travelling there, go there for the week. Go train. Build that rapport with rugby league fans in Perth. Acclimatise to the different weather over there. and embrace being in Perth. Not just fly in, fly out. Be there for the week. Make it a part of your annual thing. You're going to spend a week in Perth training, acclimatising to the game, to the weather over there, and being a part of the game in Perth to help build the game over there. So I think that Perth should have a team already. I really, really feel that they're dropping the ball there by not being in Perth already, because they've shown that the support is there. The dollar signs are there. You know, Perth has so much money to splash around. Why would you not endorse a rugby league team in Perth?
Definitely. So NRL want 20 teams by the year 2032. So Dolphins have got one. Let's say that Perth and the Jets get a team.
Right. Perth Jets, the 18 team.
That would leave three spots.
2 spots.
Sorry, 2 spots.
Yep. So Adelaide for sure. Like, once Perth is established, Adelaide has to be the next step. It really does. If you want a national competition, you have to have Perth and Adelaide in that. Darwin, I don't know. I don't know what the competition's like up there, but they may not have the population to warrant it. Same as Tasmania. They may not have the population to be able to sustain a team down there, especially with AFL going down there now. They're already going there, so people are going to jump on board that sport and get behind it. I don't think there's enough people in Tassie or in Darwin to sustain a team there. Prove me wrong, guys. Tell me you've got the numbers and we can have a conversation about that too. But we've got the Dolphins. We have to have Perth. We have to have Adelaide. Number 20, now there's talk about Papua New Guinea. So I don't know, personally I don't know anything about the Papua New Guinea Rugby League structure, whether they've got the grassroots there. I know like the Islanders will all put their hand up to go play for a Papua New Guinea team. I think it's a good step to be able to bring those guys from Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, all those islands that love their rugby league, because those guys are fanatical. They are crazy about footy over there. And I really think that's a good step to be able to do it. They could be the feed into Darwin, you know, so we can have Papua New Guinea play their games there. If they don't have the infrastructure, because like I said, I know nothing about Papua New Guinea Rugby League, but if they can be on the mainland in Darwin, that's a possibility as well. So I really think the next 3 teams, you have to have Perth, you have to have Adelaide, and then let's talk about what the 20th team is. Let's not banter, banter's the wrong word. Let's not argue over whether we should have Perth or whether we should have Adelaide. To me, and that's not just passion, that's the numbers talking. Perth has to be number 18. Adelaide has to be 19. And then we can start talking about who the 20th team is. So jumping straight to Papua New Guinea being the 18th team, I think is a bad decision if they were to go that route.
Well, just saying that, they have said they're not ready to be the 18th NRL team. They haven't said don't want to be part of it as part of the 20, but they're definitely not ready at the moment to be the 18th NRL team.
Okay. Well, that's good of them to be honest about that, because at the end of the day, I think you have to be honest about where your state stands or where your country stands as far as having a team in the national competition. And not to step on anyone's toes when I say this, Darren, but I don't think that South Australia is ready either. We certainly have the potential. We have crowd numbers, but we don't really have financial backing. Any major sponsors that really want to put their hand up and say, yeah, we will fund a team in South Australia. And we certainly don't have the media in South Australia on side, because mainstream media just doesn't want to talk about rugby league here in South Australia. It's AFL. It's all AFL. Other sports struggle to get any sort of mention on the news, on radio stations, anywhere where people are talking about sport in South Australia. It's AFL and it's the SANFL. You know, they talk about the state AFL competition, Aussie rules competition, more than they do netball, more than they do cricket. You know, national sport like cricket, and they would rather talk about who blew their nose when they were down at the beach for the Adelaide Crows, rather than talk about something like in the off season of AFL, they're still talking about it. And it's like, how do you change that sort of mentality where people just want to know everything about AFL and don't want to know anything about rugby league? It's hard to be able to tap into that sort of, marketing to be able to get rugby league to a point where people want to talk about it, the media want to talk about it, and it's not just a news report of something wrong that some rugby league player has done. Because it's usually when you hear rugby league in the mainstream media, it's a negative story. And I don't like that myself. because I love rugby league and I hate hearing. The only time you hear about rugby league in mainstream media is when it's a negative story or a passing comment about, yeah, there's a game of State of Origin at Adelaide Oval, but it's a passing comment. It's not a highlight of their newsreel, and that's frustrating to see that year after year. So,
have to agree there. The SA John Buck Army or the podcast were not contacted by anyone from the SA media. It was all interstate, SBS. We had did some great stuff with Channel 9 Sydney and other media outlets that Simon's did some stuff with ABC, but it wasn't from Adelaide. Do you think, playing devil's advocate, I guess, here, if Adelaide does get a team, do you think interstate media, like Sydney, Melbourne media who would come over, like, say, Foxtel?
I would hope that the Eastern States would support a team here and show that sort of unbiased media coverage of a South Australian team. I would love to see that. But what I'd really like to see is South Australian media get behind rugby league. That's a hard sell. It really is. Like, one of those things that we really need is Adelaide newscasters talking about rugby league, reporting on the local competition. Just give us a score update of the game of the week in the NRL. Start to incorporate rugby league into the nightly news report, on the sports report on the news. As I said, that's a hard sell. And we would be relying on the East Coast media, as you said. They're the ones who are interested in what's happening. They're the ones who love rugby league. We need their support to be able to filter down to the media outlets in South Australia and build that love for the game. Because as it is with, you open up a newspaper now, and even at State of Origin time, it's a footnote. It's a tiny little story at the bottom of page 12 of the sports section, because the first 8 pages are AFL. Then you get a couple of pages of the netball, the basketball, those sorts of things where they get a little bit of coverage. But rugby league is a footnote on a page that most people flick past in the newspapers here in South Australia.
It was, I don't usually buy a paper because it's just nothing in it.
I haven't bought the paper in years, mate.
So I only buy it when I think there's something I really I'm interested in. Sure. So I bought the paper the day after that Australia won the Cricket World Challenge.
Yeah.
And it was in the back page, just a small section, and that was it. I was expecting a full page, maybe a poster, and nothing.
And there was probably the back page was plastered with some Crows player who got injured. They'll report on their injury rather than to report on a big victory in, a major sport in Australia. So it's that sort of thing that we're pushing shit uphill. I hope I'm allowed to swear on this, but it's one of those things where, like I said, netball, they get very little coverage. Yet they're one of the biggest sports in Australia. Cricket. Everybody plays cricket in summer, whether you're down at the beach in the backyard or playing competition. But cricket struggles to get media coverage or the back page, So it's trying to infiltrate that media coverage and get them talking about something that's not AFL related. That's going to be a real challenge for us to try and build momentum here in South Australia for a rugby league team.
We'll talk a bit more about it when we talk about the Rams, but I think it also comes down to who owns the media in South Australia, and
yeah, that's right. And you're not going to change those people's minds.
No.
You're just not. So even at a level of national news coverage, for us to get what we need, the information that we need out to the people through the media is going to be a hard sell. And I look back at when I first moved to South Australia. We're talking 22 years ago now. When I first moved to South Australia, I loved it here. The only thing that was missing was rugby league. And back then we got one game a week. It was the Friday night game of the week on replay. A couple of hours after it's happened, you get one game a week, and the footy show was after midnight. It was the AFL footy show live. Then they would chuck a movie on from 1960 whatever to fill that space to make sure that the rugby league footy show started up. Now, that frustrated the hell out of me because I couldn't stay up and watch the game, watch the footy show. So I actually had my auntie and uncle from over in New South Wales send me a tape every week with the Roosters game and the footy show. And my auntie went an extra step further. She'd sit there and cut out all the newspaper clippings and put them in the envelope and send it over to me. So she, cool. I really appreciate all they did for me to keep me informed about rugby league back when there was no coverage here in South Australia. So
yeah, that's right. And it all came down to who owned the Rams, and they were on the wrong side of
the Super League
war, ledger.
Yeah. And the thing about the Super League war as well is I look back at when it happened. I was still a kid. I was a teenager. And I was like, I'm sticking with ARL. Freddie Fittler was my favourite player. He was with Penrith. Penrith were going to Super League. Freddie staunchly said, I'm staying with ARL. So I said, wherever Freddie goes, I'll go. And I've been a Sydney Roosters fan ever since. And it's one of those things where I look back at the Super League war and I go, well, actually, had News Limited won and been in control and had all that money to throw around for rugby league, the Adelaide Rams might have survived. But looking at it on a purely bottom line situation, the Adelaide Rams weren't viable. We were here at a time when the Adelaide Crows went back to back. Like, as fate would have it, the 2 years that the Adelaide Rams existed, the Adelaide Crows won the flag.
Yep.
Now, you're not going to get the casual person come across to watch a game where the team is struggling when they can watch the Crows win. Also, in 1998, the Adelaide 36ers won the championship ring that year as well. Now, we got two teams in two sports in what is already a small population. They're winning, and the Adelaide Rams were not. And unfortunately, that's the way things go. When they look at the bottom line, they go, this franchise is not viable, we'll scrap them. 4 teams had to go, the Rams were one of them. And I just think if they had been given more of an opportunity to grow, more marquee players like the Melbourne Storm did, having guys like Kerrod Walters was brilliant. Like the guys they had, the team that they had those 2 years, the Adelaide Rams had potential. It really, really could have been great. And as we saw in 1998, what did we say? It was a 52-0 victory over the Balmain Tigers. Like, even when the Rams were struggling, they still pulled out a victory like that. Now, if we could have continued with the Rams and built on that and had a few more years to establish the team, get a fan base behind, like a bigger fan base behind the Adelaide Rams, and have that media and sponsorship support, we could be sitting pretty right now and be actually in a position like the Melbourne Storm where we could have been one of those teams that is important to rugby league now. It's just unfortunate that when it happened, situations out of the control of rugby league entirely ended up filtering supporters away from rugby league. So it's just the way the chips fall, I guess.
Yes, definitely, sadly. Just reading the story from the Sydney Morning Herald, it's still talking about Papua New Guinea.
I just read there a second New Zealand team. I squashed that argument straight away. I'm like, if the Warriors cannot be successful in 20 plus years, they've been around longer than that actually. They were around before Melbourne Storm. So we're talking close to 30 years now. If the Auckland Warriors haven't won a premiership, haven't got to a point where they're an established firebrand, to put things, I don't think you can sustain a second team in New Zealand when the Warriors aren't as successful as they should have been. Also, when you start taking these games to other places in New Zealand and you get 6 pitch invaders in one game, like, honestly, guys, you're not doing yourselves any favours as far as trying to get yourself a team in the South Island, because, like, that does not show that you are the type of supporters that they want on board. To me, that was just, you're not doing yourselves any favours, guys. Stay in the stands, cheer loud, but don't do silly things like that, because that just blows your credibility as far as saying, hey, we want a team. Now, you didn't see any streakers in Adelaide. You heard loud cheers, very, very loud cheers from where I was. I was in the Blatchy's Blues section, and we were loud. Like, those chants, when the Queenslander chants started, New South Wales, we were cheering loud too. We weren't going to let them get away with being louder than us. And as I said, I was in a section predominantly blue, but sitting right beside my mum were 4 Queenslanders. And they were great people. We were chatting along all night, and everyone was getting along. And as soon as I'd start my New South Wales chant, they were standing up and they were, Queenslander. They didn't care that they were surrounded by Blues. They cheered loud. And it was really good, because we had that back and forth banter throughout the match. And from the far end where I could see all those maroon jerseys, I could hear them loud and clear. And I don't think it translated through to TV because I heard people from the East Coast saying, oh, yeah, there was no atmosphere at the Oval. It's like, mate, you should have been there. You really should have jumped on a plane and been there for the game because that atmosphere was electric.
Definitely. Absolutely. Just to finish off, Scott Bailey from the Sydney Morning Herald is saying Perth will be the likely front runner after the city's recent success in hosting State of Origin matches, and a fifth Queensland club are among other options.
They really, really want more Queensland teams, don't they? Again, one of those things that, like, Queensland is very dominant right now. At club level and at Origin level. But again, I just can't see why they still want to milk that cow of the East Coast. I could understand a team in Rockhampton, again, because you're spreading out and you're capturing that market. But even when the Dolphins came in, I was like, really? Like, you're going to tap into that already tapped out Brisbane market where the Broncos are the highest membership, the team with the highest membership level. They have the most members out of every team. Now, the Titans, my cousin lives in Brisbane. He's a Manly fan. He says, I knew I'd get a cheer out of you for that one.
Yes, definitely.
And it's been great. Marty and I, like, our rivalry goes back to childhood because he's staunch Manly. And like I said, Roosters since, the Super League war. And then we got together in 2013, sorry. Side story here, but our love for our team just came through and through. And we got together and watched the grand final in 2013. Now, I don't know where we were going with that. Where were we going?
Not sure.
I go off on a tangent sometimes, guys. I tell a bit of a story here or there. We were talking about a fifth Queensland team. Now, he goes to the Titans games, and he said most of the time it's the opposition supporters who are there because there's a lot of people in Brisbane who don't go for the Broncos. Now, I grew up just south of the Queensland border, and we had a sticker on our car that said, I support two teams, Eastern Suburbs and whoever's playing the Broncos. Because you were either staunch Broncos fans or you absolutely hated them. And so that was from my area. But on the Gold Coast, I think people on the Gold Coast were already Broncos fans. A lot of them were already a part of the Broncos cheer squad. So when the Titans came on board, and 5-6 times they've tried with the Gold Coast team now and not really had a whole lot of success. They're there, but as we've said, a lot of the times it's the supporters of the other team that are going to see the Titans. To then put the Dolphins there, now the Dolphins are going pretty good at the moment. They've sort of dropped off a bit now that they've had some injuries. But will we see that maintained supporter base when the Dolphins don't win? And they've got to keep supporting their team? Or will they just go back to the Broncos? That sort of thing to me, starting to talk about bringing another Queensland team into that area, I just don't see there being enough supporters for that to be viable. Now, that's my opinion on it. Queenslanders might say otherwise, but I just think if you were going to go to, Rockhampton, somewhere around the middle between Townsville and Brisbane, you would have a supporter base there. But if you're going to be somewhere in the south of Queensland, I just don't think there's enough people there to sustain another team. That's my opinion on the fifth Queensland team anyway.
Yep. Let's just make it easy. Let's just give Adelaide a rugby league team.
Yeah, just cut all the red tape and just make it happen. Let's get the Adelaide Rams back in the NRL competition.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll go to a break and we'll come back and talk a bit about the Adelaide Rams.
Go the Rams. Bah!
You're listening to the Rampage League podcast with Darren and Watto this evening. And we're going to be just have a quick chat about Adelaide Rams, and you've got some compelling information and some good stats from their time with the NRL.
I do, Darren. I have a beautiful big book here. It's called The History of Rugby League Clubs by Ian Collis and Alan Whitaker. Now, this book came out a few years ago. There you go, 2004 it was given to me. So nearly 20 years old already. But it has this vital information about the Adelaide Rams in 97 and 98. Now, I've read this thing many times over. I can tell you that the first Adelaide Rams home game, we had 27,000 people there. The exact numbers here, I'll find it in a minute for you. But 27,000 people in South Australia decided to go along and check out this new rugby league, the Adelaide Rams, the new rugby league team, the Adelaide Rams. Now, that tells me 25 years ago there was support for rugby league. So what happened in those 2 years that made the Adelaide Rams go from getting 27,000 people to games, the fifth highest crowd attendances out of 20 teams that first year. Now, the only teams that were ahead of them were the Brisbane Broncos, South Sydney, who, like, the Rabbitohs are everywhere. Everywhere you go, you always see a Souths fan. I did have the other teams there who were the other two teams, but the Adelaide Rams were fifth highest in crowd attendances in their first season. Now, that speaks volumes to me that out of 20 teams across 2 competitions, Adelaide had the fifth highest. Where did they go? Where are those people? Surely they still live here in South Australia.
We'd hope so, yeah.
And I think there are a lot of people, like myself, who have come into South Australia after the Adelaide Rams. And I know people have migrated from New Zealand to South Australia, from Brisbane. You know, those people who love rugby league have come into this state. There's more of us here now, I think, than there was in 1997. So how do we get those people back? How do we get them involved in rugby league? And also, I think a lot of them are still here because when we had the Melbourne Storm versus Sydney Roosters games here, we had 20,000 people. So we've got the crowd numbers. They're still here. What happened in those 2 years for the Adelaide Rams to go from way up here in crowd attendances to a year later being one of those teams that gets cut because they're considered not viable? Now, I'd like to explore that side of things a lot more and go beyond the 2 or 3 pages that I've got here in my book of the Adelaide Rams and find out more about the Adelaide Rams, who they were, what was their culture like, and how do we harness that now, 25 years later, to re-establish the Adelaide Rams here in South Australia.
Definitely. And taking us out of the picture, what can just the everyday Rams fan do to feel like they're doing their part to help bring back the Adelaide Rams?
Well, if you haven't already done so, make sure you sign the petition. We'll put the details up there on the link to this. I'm sure Darren will sort that out for us afterwards. But sign the petition. Show that you are there, that you are putting your hand up to show your support for rugby league in South Australia. That's the first thing. Support the petition so we can go to our politicians here in South Australia and go, we want your backing to take this to the NRL, to have some money behind us, to be able to say, we want a team here in South Australia. Without the numbers, without the support of the fans, it won't happen. You know, you look at that video of the Newtown Jets fans. They don't have a team in the national competition, but they are still passionate about rugby league and about their team. Whether they're in the top grade or not, they are still passionate about their team. So where are our Rams fans who are still involved in rugby league? That's the next step, Darren. Support the local competition. Get down to the local games. Become a member of a club. Buy their merchandise. Support them with their fundraisers. Do all of those things to show your support for rugby league. Put your money towards building rugby league here in South Australia. And let's get those numbers up of people involved in rugby league. Get your kids out kicking the ball. Get them involved in the game and get them along to tryouts, you know, join the touch competition and get involved in those sorts of things that support rugby league here in South Australia.
Definitely. I think it's one way, and it's a great way, that if you sign the petition, we've got something physical to take and say, well, hey, South Australia has spoken, let's talk.
Certainly. And that's what we need. Like, the petition is really, really important because that's what says we are here. You can't just wear your team jersey down the street and expect people to look at it and show respect. You said, Darren, you were telling me about you guys wearing your bring back the Adelaide Rams merchandise at State of Origin Game 1, and you got a lot of engagement from the general public about that. Let's do that. Let's wear our Adelaide Rams gear in Adelaide as often as possible. If you're going along to, I'm a big wrestling fan, and just on the weekend past, front row, on screen all the time, is a guy in his South Sydney jersey. Now, Souths fans are passionate about their team. Let's start wearing Adelaide Rams merchandise as often as possible and get people talking. If somebody does engage with you in a conversation about your Adelaide Rams merchandise, encourage them to go along to the local games. Encourage them to go buy a shirt or a hat themselves. Build that repertoire of things to say to somebody as soon as they engage you in a conversation about rugby league. Point them in the right direction to show their support for the Adelaide Rams or the return of an Adelaide team in South Australia. Get them to sign the petition. Don't let them leave the conversation without, hey, here's the page. Put your name down. Let's get these people engaged in rugby league. And we talked before we hit record about those people who are rugby league fans but don't talk about it. They watch the game in their lounge room, but they don't go and talk about it at the water cooler because everyone's talking about AFL. They don't go to work and talk about the game because we get ridiculed by AFL fans for supporting rugby league. So a lot of people just don't talk about it. Unless they see somebody else with some NRL merch on or somebody else starts the conversation, which I do. I talk about rugby league everywhere I go. And every now and then you'll get somebody who goes, oh yeah, I support so-and-so team. And oh yeah, rah, rah, rah. And you start the conversation with them based on they've spotted you as an NRL fan, so they want to engage with you. Because we crave each other here in South Australia. We look for each other. Somebody else who supports rugby league, who you can have a conversation with, who understands the game. I do. I crave those sorts of people who I can have a conversation with, who doesn't just go, oh yeah, those bum sniffers. It frustrates the hell out of me when people reference John Hopewade or Todd Carney or somebody who's just done something stupid once, but it's what they talk about all these years later, whenever the topic of rugby league comes up. Not, wow, the Panthers have won back-to-back premierships. They're looking at they could win 3 straight. The Melbourne Storm are looking good. Whoever it is, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about what's going on in rugby league. They want to talk about something that happened 20 years ago and ridicule your sport in the process. And that's frustrating as a rugby league fan. As we said before, the only time you hear about rugby league in the media is when it's a negative story. Unless they're already a rugby league fan, somebody says something about rugby league, it's in a negative connotation. So we need to change that culture in South Australia and get more people engaged in having positive conversations about rugby league here in South Australia.
Absolutely. And maybe that's something we should do. We should have a State Rams, Adelaide Rams Day.
Yeah.
Yep. You get to wear your kit and be a proud Adelaide Rams fan.
For sure. Let's get some fundraisers going to fund South Australian Rugby League. Set up some tents down at in the city, down at the Parklands, with our Adelaide Rams logos on it. Come and join the Adelaide Rams. Sign the petition. Show your support. Let's do it. Let's get out there in amongst the people and show support for rugby league here in South Australia and get them talking about bring back the Adelaide Rams.
Absolutely. And we have got a couple of ideas for a couple of fundraisers and some promos, some really good events. We won't say too much now, but all you have to do to keep informed is check out the Bring Back the Adelaide Rams NRL page, or as you can see on the bottom of the screen if you're watching the video cast, it's www.facebook.com/groups/Adelaide Rams, and that's the Jumbuck Army, and you can be asked to join that group and you'll be kept in touch with whatever's happening. But we have got some great ideas coming up that you can be involved in, and we'll have a sign-up page how you can sign up to be a fan and be the first to know.
Excellent. Looking forward to finding out more about that in the coming weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. And just keep an eye on all the social media for everything Adelaide Rams. Okay, well, I guess that kind of draws us to a close this evening.
Very good. Thanks for having me tonight, Darren. It's been really, really good to be able to talk in depth about rugby league and about the Adelaide Rams.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you coming off the bench, and we'll make sure we put you in our starting lineup from now on.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it. And I'm really looking forward to meeting the other guys and having a bit of a chat and building up the support for the Adelaide Rams.
Absolutely. Well, we know Simon will be back in August, and Aidan hopefully he'll be back in the next couple of weeks. My name's Darren.
I'm Simon, or also known as Watto.
Until next week, we thank you very much for joining us on the podcast, or if you're watching our video stream. Thank you very much. We'll catch you all next week.
Go the Rams, bah! Go the Rams, bah!
Adelaide to bring it out from their own line. And met by some very willing Auckland defence. And pushed back a couple of metres. Herod Walters just goes from dubbing half, picking up Darren Doherty. 25 metres out from his own line.
As now the Adelaide Rams make their way out onto Marathon Stadium for the first time.